morning, good afternoon, good evening. I remember my high school teacher telling us, the class, that if you don't know what you're looking for, you're not likely to find it. When you listen to MDC CCC leaders, you realize why the country is a failed state. One of the reasons why we are a failed state is that we have failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections. Since the late 1990s, the nation has entrusted the task of implementing the democratic reforms so that we have free, fair, and credible elections to the MDC CCC party. Now, 25 years down the line, you'd think by now at least they will know what is it we require, we must achieve, we must do to make sure that we've got free, fair, and credible elections. It really seems like they don't know. Chamisa, in his so-called Agenda 2026 fresh start, he did refer to the problem of disputed elections. What is so annoying about that statement is that he is the one who has again and again called people to participate in flawed elections, assuring them that he has fixed the problems. Only after the elections, for him to turn back, to turn around and say the elections were rigged. Back to square one. Here is Promise Mukwananzi, the spokesperson of CCC, a senior position one would expect to be held by somebody who at least understands some of the basic issues, like what is it we require to make sure we're free, fair, and credible elections.
Well, we're not winning that election. But yeah, that explains why you have been missing. Let's talk about calling of the elections. Yes. No. Let's talk about calling of the elections. Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has been calling for numerous by-elections. You have not been participating because you are afraid that participating, you'll be wallowed. The Zimbabwe Election Commission is unfit to call for any election. And that is even underwritten by SADC. It is a body of criminal elements led by that lady. They have no credibility whatsoever to conduct an election in this country. What have they done about the SADC recommendations for free and fair elections in Zimbabwe? Nothing. What have they done to clarify all the accusations against them from the 2023 elections? Nothing. What have they done to announce the official figures of the presidential election of 2023? What have you done to make them do that? Because they are a constitutional obligation. They are not supposed to be made to do it. They're supposed to do it. And when they fail to do it, they become unfit to remain there. And you're sitting there. And now they are not in a position, they don't have the authority now. They've squandered their own legitimacy in any election in this country. As long as they are in the composition that they are, they cannot call for election in this country. And people think that it is an election. And that explains why Mr. Mnangagwa is not willing to go to election in 2023. If an election was to be a go over, and he would be wanted an early election, but he no.
Well, let's look at this again. Here is a senior CCC leader telling us that it is for ZEC to implement the democratic reforms recommended by SADC and all the other election observers. We have all accepted that ZEC is ZANU-PF in all but name. You have to ask yourself, why would ZANU-PF want to implement even one token reform when they know that the opposition will participate in those flawed elections with not even one token reform implemented? Why would they want to do that? The opposition itself, MDC, is the one that has been insisting in participating in flawed elections. In 2018, Chamisa told the nation that MDC alliance has stringent measures to stop ZANU-PF rigging the elections. The people believed that. They participated in those elections. Only the day after the results came out, Chamisa to turn around and say, oh, the elections were rigged. The election observers came up with a report confirming that the elections were rigged and came up with a list of recommendations that should be implemented. The European Union, they had the biggest team of election observers in 2018. And they came up with 23 recommendations that needed to be implemented before the next elections. Chamisa and company did not even lift a finger to get even one of those recommendations implemented. Indeed, come 2023, he was the one who was saying, no, I've plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. ZANU-PF will not rig the elections. Once again, the people believed him. They participated in those elections in good faith. Chamisa even invoked the name of God. He assured the nation that CCC was going to win big and it was God's plan. Hashtag God is in it. And yet we know those elections were rigged. SADC came out with a report stating clearly that those elections were rigged. So when Chamisa said he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes, what loopholes did he plug? None. Here is SADC chairperson, Dr. Nevas Mumba, speaking on that very issue of rigged election 2023.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, let me be clear that the changing of any dynamic or situation in any of our African countries is a preserve of the citizens of that country, in this case, the Zimbabwean people. An election observation team goes there to support the process by observing and being able to release a statement of our observations that, for instance, in Zimbabwe, we raised several issues of transparency and also the independence of the Electoral Commission and things which happen in many other countries, But at the end of the day, once we produce the report and make it available to the Zimbabwean authorities and eventually to the Zimbabwean people. It really remains the preserve of the Zimbabwean people to fight for the freedoms that they need themselves and to correct those issues that have been observed. The reason why we have multiple observation missions is to ensure that, there's a comparison, taking place between the SADC report and the European Union report, the African Union report, and then they can see that those issues that repeat themselves in all these reports, it's up to the Zimbabwean people. And this is where I appeal to all political leaders, not only in Zimbabwe, especially the elections that are coming in Mozambique, that are coming in South Africa, in DRC. We have to make up our minds that, look, at the end of the day, once the people in the country are given an opportunity to monitor the elections, because they also monitor, it starts not during the day of the elections. They must make sure that the constitutional lacunas that can affect a good election are dealt with months before the election, and they must fight to ensure that there's a level playing field. They should never wait for the time when the election is taking place. They must also insist that the electoral commissions and the governments in those countries abide by international norms in holding democratic elections. And this fight must be more vicious before the election comes.
I want to reiterate what I said the other day when Chamisa announced that he has returned to the dancing floor. Let me rest assure you, as much as we know that without implementing reforms, there will be no free, fair, and credible elections, what I can assure you is Chamisa and company will be participating in 2028 elections without even a token reform implemented. They'll be telling the people of Zimbabwe once again that they've devised ways of winning rigged elections. This is the problem we have in Zimbabwe. We have an opposition that has given up on implementing reforms to ensure free, fair, and credible elections. They've given up out of greed. Make no mistake about it. And they will drag the nation into yet another flawed electoral process in 2028. We owe it to ourselves, to our children, and to posterity to put an end to this madness. We should not participate in 2028 elections without first implementing the democratic reforms. That is the number one message that we must send out there loudly and clearly. This message we will be repeating again and again as we go forward. Thank you. Have a good evening.